Now, just when you thought you were done with CSS, there's one more thing I want to show you. I've hinted at this a couple of times during this section, but another way of storing your CSS is to do it completely off the page that you're working on. So the internal CSS that we've been using so far has all of the CSS right there in the code of the page. There's a couple of reasons why that's not a great idea. It's very helpful in development when you're making a site because everything's together, but in production, it means that you have to have your CSS content on every page, which isn't great. You could find yourself updating it several times, and you'll definitely have a slightly slower site because the users will have to download the CSS information every time they load a new page. So the general solution for this is external CSS. And we already saw one of those files when we used a Google font, but I'm going to show you how to do it now with our bbc.html file. So I'm going to get all of the style information and cut it. And we'll get rid of this. And just out of interest, let's have a quick look and see what our page looks like without any CSS at all. Yeah, it's not great. Readable, but not great. So how do we keep our CSS separate from our HTML? Well, I'm going to do it by creating a new file in brackets. And this is going to be our CSS file. So I'm going to call it bbc.css. And that's where I'll store all of our styles. And now all I need to do is reference that file in my bbc.html file. Will bring in all those CSS styles. So you may remember some of the code that we had when we copied in the Google Fonts link, but we do this using link, which is our way of bringing in another file into our HTML file. And we use rel, which is short for relation, and this is the relation between the main HTML file and the file that we're linking to. And in this case, it's a style sheet. So this tells the HTML that we're linking to a separate style sheet. Then we have to clarify the type, and the standard for style sheets is text/CSS. And finally, we give it the href, or the hypertext reference, the location. So that's going to be bbc.css. Simple as that. So now if we save that and reload our page, we've got all our styles back in. So that's how you use external CSS, and I would recommend using external CSS pretty much all the time when you're working with a live site. It just makes things so much easier, separates everything out, and requires the user to download less information when they visit multiple pages on your site. Alright, so use some external style sheets in the next website that you create, but for now we're going to go on and look at some JavaScript.